The Denver Broncos offense and Sean Payton feasted in New Orleans in his homecoming in prime time action. We'll talk about how the Broncos might have found a little bit of their offensive identity and highlight what the defense did without their top player here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, Broncos Country? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you know it's your team every day. A victory Friday here, Broncos Country, as Denver goes into New Orleans and they mollywop the New Orleans Saints 33-10. Really, Denver doing exactly what they should have done here. We'll break down all the action here on today's episode show. I want to say thanks so much to all the everydayers out there in Broncos Country. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make sure if you haven't done so already, you nail that subscribe or that follow button so you never miss out on what's going on with your favorite team through the wins, losses, everything in between, and even primetime victories. We got you covered every single day all year long. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined as always by Sayre Bedinger, site expert over there, predominantlyorange.com. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Sayre, big time win here for the Broncos. Obviously, as we're going to go through our post-game report here, Denver getting a chance to go to 4-3 now, a little bit of a mini bye ahead of them before next week's game. Denver's defense finding a way to win without Patrick Surtain II, and more importantly, Denver dominating offensively in Sean Payton's return to New Orleans. That's the biggest storyline. Let's open it up with that. There was a lot of hype, a lot of hoopla throughout the week about, hey, it's Sean Payton returning to the house that he built. Drew Brees is being honored at halftime. And I kind of titled our crossover show that you had with Ross Jackson the other day as kind of the perfect storm for the Broncos to go into New Orleans against a banged-up team, take care of business. The offense did just that.
They did, and it could have been even worse. I know the final score shows 33-10, and one of those, touchdowns that was in the midst of that 33 points was a defensive score, which we'll talk about. But really, Cody, that doesn't take away from the overall performance of the offense, which, Sean Payton said it after halftime. You want to not settle for field goals and get those touchdowns out there, because the Broncos, they were basically living in New Orleans Saints territory, especially in the first half of this game, and then bleeding into the early portion of the second half. It was really nice to see just the Broncos, getting ahead of the chains on first down, really good running game, really good play design, really good game flow. Everything was nice from that perspective. Everything that was, the opposite of what we had seen against the LA Chargers, right? And so this team, like you said, they came out really looking focused. It would have been so easy for all the Sean Payton, New Orleans, Drew Brees stuff, would have been so easy for that to be a distraction, but it ended up really seeming like, man, Sean just had his guys in their bag for this game. The Broncos were focused. They were not penalized hardly at all in this game. It was nice to see, especially coming off of a loss.
Well, and on top of that, too, in a week where it's like you come off of a disappointing loss, you don't have long to really prepare. You really can't do much to physically prepare for this game. You're just hoping you get your body right for Thursday night. I think Denver's focus all throughout the week and the one day we were able to see them at the team facility and the walkthrough, I think you have to applaud the coaching staff and the players. They maintain their composure there. There could have been a lot of different things that could have gone wrong for them in this game. Historically, we've seen older Denver teams kind of fall into that trap a little bit. So love to see that there. Look, I think, we could talk about this game. Really, the story offensively rooted in their identity of what they could become was really on the ground. Sayre, for the first time, I think since, 2013, the team – I think it was 2019 or something like that, the last time the team ran for over 200 yards. But this is their best team rushing output since 2013, over 227 yards rushing on the day. Javonte Williams looking really good. Before we get into that, I really want to highlight, let's talk about Bo Nix. For the first time this season, a lot of people, maybe for the first time, were able to tune in to Bo Nix. And hey, early on, Sayre, it wasn't pretty. There was some rough mechanical stuff there from Bo, specifically with footwork. I think right now, Bo's footwork is his biggest critique against him right now. There were times where, he had a clean pocket, missed some throws that were wide open, left a lot of yards and potential production out there on the field. But I will say later in the second quarter, he settled in. And in a way where, he wasn't necessarily going in rhythm in the first half in terms of the pass game. He contributed to the Broncos over 200 yards rushing in this win. He had a handful of yards, 75 on the ground himself on 10 rushing attempts. That's impressive. But man, the star of this game is going to be Javonte Williams, which we'll highlight a little bit deeper. But great rushing performance by Denver. It opened things up for them offensively against the Saints defense that I don't know what's happened to them. They can't tackle anybody.
No, they had 16 missed tackles against the Buccaneers, and I guess we'll find out how many officially they had against the Denver Broncos. But it was nice to see the Broncos take advantage of that instead of being what we kind of have gotten used to since Super Bowl 50. Is like the Broncos being that get right team for a lot of other teams that are struggling in areas. Hey, you're struggling to run the ball. Go ahead, take on the Denver Broncos. You'll have your best running game of the season. You're struggling to tackle. Go ahead, take on the Denver Broncos. They'll lay down for you out there. So it's a different team, and I think that speaks to coaching. I think that speaks to the culture of this team that they came into New Orleans seeing, hey, this Saints team, like, they're down to practice squad guys in certain areas. They've got Spencer Rattler out there, a rookie quarterback making his first primetime start. Like, we need to whip up on these guys a little bit. And they did exactly that. So it's like everybody's, wanting to see the Broncos do what they're supposed to do against a bad team. They did exactly that. And you're right with Bo Nix, Cody. I mean, you see the base get kind of off kilter there on a throw early on in the game where he had both Lucas Kroll and Troy Franklin wide open and would have been an easy score on the first drive of the game. Unfortunately, didn't set his feet, didn't get enough behind the throw. Same thing happened on another play later on to Adam Troutman and a couple of other throws that maybe were missed. And then you have drop passes as well. And then you had pass plays called back due to a penalty here and there late in the game. So I think that there's a story to be told with all of it. But the point is, and why we bring this up after a win, is the fact that, okay, you had these plays available to you early in the game. If that happens against Baltimore or if that happens against Kansas City, then it becomes a much bigger problem in the eyes of the fan base and in the overall just kind of longevity situation here. So you want to see him hit those throws. You want to see that stuff improve, and you want to see the Broncos pour it on offensively. I don't like seeing Will Lutz out there kicking field goals. I want him to kick extra points, and I know Sean Payton does as well, but thank goodness he made those field goals because the Broncos, they need that right now with what they're kind of growing pains offensively. So you like to see that Bo Nix settled in. You want to see him kind of figure those other things out early on.
Yeah, and look, I even thought too, because I even thought the one play on third down to Troutman. I mean, I don't even think Troutman was supposed to release as a receiver. I think he was staying in his protection, but because Bo can extend plays with his legs, and on that play, New Orleans had great coverage across the board, so he turned into kind of a leakage guy. I thought at first watching, I was like, man, it's just that Bo's got to float that to him. It's not a great throw, but they did show it at halftime. It did look like that pass was tipped. Not saying it's an excuse, but obviously we can all acknowledge Bo's got to clean up the footwork. One thing Drew Brees said that stood out to me as well, because he was obviously in the broadcast booth with Al Michaels there talking about it, saying that, he sees the things that Sean sees with him. Now, if he can adjust the footwork, the good thing about footwork, Sayre, it's a mental thing that's obviously impacting the physical. It can be fixed. It's something that's not like career altering unless you don't change it. I think Bo's going to work to change it. An evident area of critique of his game, but I like how he settled in and he made some good throws. I think in the one game, he had a nice throw across the middle of the field to Lucas Kroll. You talked about the drops earlier. Marvin Mims had a pretty bad drop I think against an all-out pressure, a nice back shoulder adjustment there. And one thing that was also said too, Drew Brees even said, like, Denver's got size, but they don't have a lot of playmakers around him. So that's something that'll be an emphasis here going forward. But you know what? It's a victory. The Broncos dominant on the ground. Contributions from Bo Nix, Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Audric Estime. But the defense, they did their job as well. No Patrick Surtain II. No problem. We'll break down exactly what the Broncos defense did against Spencer Rattler and the Saints offense here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's Locked On Broncos postgame report is brought to you by our friends over there at Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Luka Doncic card or Patrick Mahomes rookie card or even a Bo Nix card just isn't in the cards. But I love collecting, and I know a lot of people do as well, but that's some serious money to drop. And thanks to slab packs from our friends over there at arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. And Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pools are revealed, they'll immediately be placed into your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or even auction. So check it out here today. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform that you have to check out. And right now you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl and use code LOCKEDONNFL. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl, code LOCKEDONNFL for 10% off your first purchase. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at Prize Picks, and Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports done the right way because they're the best place to get real money, sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. So run your game all season long with Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. And if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So check it out here today over there at Prize Picks inside the app. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.
No PS2, no problem for the Denver Broncos defense in week 7, a Thursday night drubbing of the New Orleans Saints. Exactly what this team needed and exactly what Cody and I and a lot of you in Broncos country wanted to see this team do. Go out and dominate a team that's down in the dumps and beaten, battered, and broken. Broncos country, it's Victory Friday, and we're going to break down the defensive performance from that Thursday night drubbing that the Broncos put on in New Orleans. But want to say thank you for every single one of you that makes Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day, especially those of you that subscribe to the show. And if you aren't already subscribed, man, help us out. Go ahead and do that. You know that your boys Cody and Sayre got you every single day. I know Cody, follow a lot of accounts on YouTube that I watch their videos all the time. I forget to subscribe just because it's easy to do. You get used to kind of seeing each other in your algorithm. So I think, with Broncos country, we're all subscribed to this defense. What Vance Joseph, I'm buying what Vance Joseph is selling out there through 7 weeks this season. A little bit of a setback against the Chargers, but no PS2 out there after the concussion in week 6. The New Orleans Saints did not present a threat for a Denver Broncos defensive front that, Cody, there needs to be more widespread respect for this defensive front 7. These guys are dominant and they put on a show on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, you got fantasy football dweebs out there that work in the industry space that apparently have no idea who's on the Broncos roster. And I love the one thing that Kirk Herbstreit said about this Broncos team is, you look at them, you don't you look at the names and you don't necessarily think they've got good players. Like you watch the tape. These guys are really good defensively. They have great contributions at almost every level of the field, which is nice to see. And I think for the Broncos defensively here, Sarah, the one thing I really like seeing here, look, no PS2. It's like, okay, hey, how are you going to manage that? The benefit was, okay, you're going against an offense. I mean, man, New Orleans, that is one of the most banged up teams in football, right? And I know there are going to be a lot of people say, well, you beat up on an injured Saints team. That's what the Broncos were supposed to do. Defensively, against that offense, that's exactly what the Broncos were supposed to do, and they did just that. I like the pressure that we saw from Vance Joseph. I think early on here in this game, it was more of a filling out process. Okay, hey, what are we going to see here from Spencer Rattler? Remember, they did the Kubiak-style play-action boot. There was a 32-yard catch and run. I think it was from Foster Moreau. But then from that point forward, Denver settled down defensively. Man, they popped some dudes. Jaquan McMillan, P.J. Locke, Brandon Jones coming up and smacking dudes. But really, defensively, they kind of set the tone for this game here, and they rebounded in a big way. What was the biggest thing that hurt them against the Chargers? It was third down efficiency. They couldn't get off the field on third down. It wasn't a problem on Thursday night. Denver, in this game specifically, they held the Saints to 5 of 17 third down conversion percentage there. I think the thing that stands out to me the most, though, Sarah, 6 sacks on the day, 11 quarterback hits. Nick Bonito, once again, Now 5 straight games notching a sack there. He and Jonathan Cooper started, even though Baron Browning returned to the mix. But you had obviously Nick Bonito getting in the mix, Cody Barton getting in the mix, Jonah Ellis, Justin Sternad. You had everyone contributing, John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen, obviously. I love the intensity that Denver's defense came out and they played with, especially in a game where they needed it. Nick Bonito told me last week in the locker room on Tuesday, I like that we got a Thursday game because we need to get this taste out of our mouth. I think the Broncos accomplished just that on Thursday Night Football. Maybe it was a little bit of lamb yap there in New Orleans.
I love it. And it was great to see because, man, those guys, they're going to be the unit that I think the Broncos, that they ride or die with all season, right? I mean, if that pass rush is on, the Broncos are going to be in any and every game. I mean, that's just how it is. When you can get after the quarterback at this rate that the Broncos are doing right now, it is huge for the entire team. And I love seeing it from all these different angles, right? I mean, you see the pass rush come through late with Jaquan McMillan getting in there, Cody Barton picking off a pass, taking it back. But by the way, I can't wait to talk about our game balls for this game because, man, the ball magnet that is Cody Barton, right? So, but no, the pass rush it's just unreal, man. It's so much fun to watch. Every single play, I find myself sitting there thinking, all right, who's going to get home this time? It's kind of like, I mean, it's very, very different, obviously. But remember that 2013 offense for the Broncos where Peyton Manning drops back and you're just like, all right, who's catching a touchdown this time? Because there was 5 different guys with 10 plus touchdowns on that team. It kind of feels like that when the Broncos are rushing the quarterback. It's like, all right, who's going to get there this time? Because somebody's going to, right? That's what it feels like. They just have that way about them.
Did you see, we've seen Denver obviously disguise a lot of their blitzes, right? Like they're going to show blitz from one end. They're going to send somebody you don't expect. They're going to drop somebody in coverage you don't expect. Malcolm Roach dropping back into coverage on one play.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it and it's like, Vance Joseph is a sicko for doing that. But I mean, it's strategic and it works because he's covered and he's dropping to the middle of the field on the key third down situation. And nobody's expecting it, especially the quarterback. Spencer Rattler is like, wait a minute. What's he doing right there? I love the contributions there defensively. I just felt like the energy on Thursday night was great. Those guys flew around. Obviously, Riley Moss, Levi Wallace starting in the base package, Jaquan in the nickel. And when the Broncos can find a way to send PJ, when they can find a way to send Jaquan, I mean, they find a way to get home, and it's productive. And that's the thing I like about their secondary is just the versatility level there that you see. And there's times where they're going to show it and then drop back into coverage, and then you get a blitz from someone and from some angle. You're like, wait a minute, wasn't expecting it from that side. Vance Joseph has done a terrific job with his defense. And look, the defense is going to have games like last Sunday against the Chargers where they're giving up plays. It's just not their day. That's the nature of the business. And that's where you really need complementary football to come into play. And I think that Denver, at least on Thursday night, I felt like all 3 phases complemented each other well. You mentioned Will Lutz with the field goals. He was very efficient there. Thought Denver's punting unit, pinning guys deep, was pretty good. There were a couple big returns late there. I'm not sure if that was a personnel thing. But then on top of that, the defense just once again setting things up here for the Broncos. And so now, Sayre, everything kind of opens up here for Denver. That now they're going to prepare. They're going to get some guys back. I know before this game, they brought Baron Browning back officially, Damari Mathis. We got to see both these guys in the game. A little bit of a rusty start for Baron. I think that's to be expected, not having played since week 2, but certainly with the emergence of Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Jonah Ellis, that's going to be something to watch, I think, as the season progresses, because now Baron Browning, who's in a contract year as well, he's going to have to make some hay to climb back from a little bit of the deficit that he's in that room, specifically with the production of those other guys. So, it was good to see him back. I'm glad he's back out there on the field. But yeah, got to shake off some rust a little bit. For the most part, a pretty good performance there by Denver defensively in this game. But what's next now, Broncos country? The team is at 4-3. They get a little bit of a mini bye week. But you know what we got to do on a victory post-game show? We got to hand out game balls. We're going to hand out ours, and we want you to hand out yours here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's Locked On Broncos post-game report is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel. And as you all know at FanDuel, they are America's #1 sportsbook, and they want to give you a big return this season inside of the FanDuel app, especially with the NFL season being here. Week 7 is here. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bet. So if you're watching the games on Sunday as a Broncos fan, you're like, you know what? I don't have to worry about Denver. They took care of business on Thursday night. Now I can just enjoy NFL Red Zone. I can enjoy the games here, but let me see what I can do inside of the FanDuel app. You can go in there. You can put together a same-game parlay. You can put together a multi-leg parlay, or you can do player props, especially with some of the trades now. Amari Cooper now in Buffalo with Josh Allen. Devontae Adams. What's the over-under? What's in terms of touchdown passes or receiving touchdowns in New York there? I don't think it's going to make a big of a difference here, but you can bet on all that inside the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and you will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So make sure you check that out today over there at FanDuel.com. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. As we jump to the fourth quarter action on today's Locked On Broncos postgame report, Denver wins 33-10 on the road in epic fashion for Sean Payton's homecoming. It makes it feel a little bit sweeter for Sean Payton, but for the Denver Broncos here, things seem a little sweet right now here, Sayre. And the reason why, when we go back to the preseason, we go back to even our good friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook, a lot of the people in Vegas had Denver at 5.5 wins, and you and I on the show in the offseason said, you know what? We're smashing the over on that easily. Denver's now 4-3. They're 1 win away from matching their projected win total for this upcoming season. I think when we try to see the forest through the trees here, right? Obviously, Denver's a young team. They need playmakers to, I think around Bo Nix to help him out. They need a consistent run game to be able to do that. Defensively, I think we're very pleased with where Denver is at. Denver's got a very solid roster. I think that they're exceeding expectations here early on, and I think the conversation has been fun, but it's also been a little tiresome because I think of how people view Bo Nix and the fact that, hey, like Bo's young, he's making some mistakes, but there's things that Bo's doing. Like I would say for Bo and the footwork issues that he's had, that's something he has to address, right? But the bigger thing is he's finding other ways to contribute in a way, even if he's not throwing for a touchdown. What's he doing? He's helping the Broncos win games. That's big. The rest of the stuff I think can come later. But that a lot of that's going to be on what can he carry over on the mental side of maybe adjusting his footwork a little bit. So many things to be excited about. So I think that was a little tangent. I just went off here. I want to say thanks to all the everydayers and first listeners here in Broncos Country. Something I had on my thoughts here. I mean, your thoughts to that here real quick, Sayre, about, this team, the expectations of where they're at so far, and then we'll hand out game balls here to a couple of players.
Yeah, I think that the Broncos are already way better than most people predicted that they would be. I mean, you mentioned it earlier with the kind of the no-name defense. I was watching John Gruden's preview of this game. He called them the anonymous crush, and I think that that's kind of fitting. I think Mark Schlereth made a comment that there's not a lot of name brand guys on the team, and I tweeted back at Mark Schlereth, yeah, but there's a lot of great value players on this roster, right? And so pick whichever one of those you want to, Broncos Country. But I think that, yeah, they are exceeding expectations. And for Bo Nix, what is he doing well? 0 interceptions, 0 sacks taken in this game against the New Orleans Saints. I feel like he does see everything at the line of scrimmage extremely well. He runs away from pressure. Like when the Saints are blitzing in that 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, Cody, he recognized the blitz and he gets outside for a gain to get the field goal kicker closer on 4th down, knowing that the Saints are kind of sending an all-out blitz there. And so I just feel like he's so instinctive out there, and he proves that. Yeah, he needs to clean up the footwork. I think we will see that as time goes on. But as we give out our game balls here, Cody, you talked about it earlier. You touched on it. There's no bigger no-brainer for a game ball in this game than a certain linebacker on the Denver Broncos defense after this win.
Yeah, Cody Barton. And look, every time Sean Payton is like talking at a presser, he says, Cody, I'm like, wait, Sean, are you talking to me? No, he's talking about Cody Barton. And look, I think this performance here early on, okay, granted, it's the first game of week 7. Cody Barton made a strong case right away for week 7 AFC Defensive Player of the Week. And look, I was even saying it too early on, is like, man, Cody Barton is having the legendary game that probably never was, especially like early on. He has the strip sack on Spencer Rattler, right? So you get a sack, you get a forced fumble, and then all of a sudden he gets a fumble recovery on Spencer Rattler, runs it back for a touchdown, but DJ Jones is offside. So that wipes off a touchdown on the board. And then later on in the game, he gets a pick 6. And so it's like he had an opportunity for, I think, another interception as well, but he had a pick 6 here, 8 tackles. I mean, this is a guy who was everywhere. And even early on, he was downfield in coverage in the first quarter. I was very impressed with Cody Barton. Very interesting that they started Quan Alexander and Cody Barton. I know Justin Sternad was banged up a little bit coming into this week, but he still played in this game. They just rotated linebackers here. It was nice to see. But, man, Cody Barton, he absolutely gets a game ball. This dude was playing with his hair on fire. He doesn't have hair. He's bald. But he was playing with his hair on fire there. And he was a fun player to watch. And I've been very pleased to see his progression here, I think, is in the time here so far in Denver running with the defense. He gets a game ball from me. Now I've got to ask you, who are you giving a game ball to from this performance on Thursday night?
Well, defensively, it was Cody Barton, who was just, the ball was just, I mean, everything's bouncing his way, right? The same could be said for Javonte Williams offensively, Cody. I mean, after last week, the fumble that led to 7 points for the Chargers, I think a lot of people were fed up wondering if, hey, is Sean finally going to throw in the towel on Javonte Williams and just go roll with Audric Estime and see what he's got, give him 15 carries or something like that? No, they stuck with Javonte Williams, and the dude looked explosive once again. I mean, that's become the norm over the last 4 weeks. 3 of the last 4 weeks, Javonte Williams has been very good. And in this game, he had a pair of touchdowns, which, I mean, we're not used to seeing Javonte as powerful as he is, as big as he is not usually a red zone, like, I mean, you don't see it a lot.
How many rushing touchdowns does he have in the red zone in his career? Not a lot.
I don't know how many it is. Somebody in the listener in the comments is going to have to look that up for us. But 88 yards on 14 carries, a pair of touchdowns, 6.3 yards per carry average. And, you know, he got some of his best runs of the night running behind our boy Mike McGlinchey, right next to Quinn Miners there. They did such a great job of designing the running game and executing the running game. Just their plan was so nice. And Javonte executed well. He was running with good vision. He was creating yardage after contact, held on to the football. He was better in the passing game as well in this game, Cody. So it's becoming a bit of a pattern here for Javonte Williams. I mean, he went over 100 total yards from scrimmage once again. He did that again, I believe, just 2 weeks ago as well. So he's putting on some shows lately, Broncos country. Maybe don't write the what's that called? You know, when you speak at a funeral, what's those called?
The obituary or the eulogy.
The eulogy. Yeah. Don't be writing the eulogy for Javonte Williams just yet in 2024.
You know, I'll say this too. And he would have had over 100 yards rushing too. Nate Atkins got called for a hold on an 18-yard run that he had. So, I mean, but Javonte looked like the guy of old, right? Flashy, springy, keeping his legs churning. There could have been a couple of angry run candidates there. I would even say, like, even Jaleel McLaughlin coming in had some nice plays as well for the Broncos. When you look at it from a rushing standpoint, 4 carries for 35 yards. That's 8.8 yards per carry. Bo Nix, obviously, the 10 carries for 75 yards. That's impressive. Audric Estime early on, 5 carries, 29 yards. But, you know, kind of overshadowed by, once again, just the thing we've seen him struggle with in the preseason, ball security, lost a fumble. He's got to protect the nose of that. It's going to be a big thing here for Sean Payton. But if he can find a way to corral that, I like Denver's possibility of a 3-headed rushing attack there that opens things up a little bit more for the offense. I think we saw the formula. If Denver can run the ball effectively, Bo Nix doesn't have as much pressure on him to try to make so many plays happen from the QB position, especially when right now, like, everyone's recognizing you have size there. Cortland Sutton's a guy, but teams are going to try to take Cortland away, and you have no other playmakers. So that was nice to see Troy Franklin get involved, Lucas Kroll with a couple of catches, and even Devon Vele with a couple of catches as well. Contributions across the board here for the Broncos offense. Very efficient for them as well. We'll talk about it. Time of possession, 33 minutes compared to New Orleans, 26. New Orleans held on to it a little bit longer in the fourth quarter than Denver did, which kind of makes that number look a little bit closer, but love the efficiency there by Denver in this game. So the Broncos improved to 4-3. Broncos country, we want to hear your thoughts. Who gets your game ball offensively and defensively? Let us know in the YouTube comments, or if you're listening, wherever you get your podcasts. We're always all ears for that as well. So with that said, Broncos country, appreciate you so much for rocking with us here in the post-game report. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, comment for the algorithm, and send this to a Broncos fan that may not know about this podcast just yet. We appreciate you so much. That means that you get to enjoy the rest of your weekend now that the Broncos have won. Happy Friday, Broncos country. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time for another episode, Locked On Broncos.